Hello friends, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be going through a journey of testing out the COVERGIRL CG Smoothers Hydrating Makeup. This is a foundation I decided to pick up from the drugstore here locally at my Shoppers Drug Mart. I believe it was on sale for $8.99 Canadian, so usually it's in like the $10 to $12 range here in Canada. I'm not really going to talk too much about the company. It's COVERGIRL. I think the only thing to note is that they have recently gone cruelty-free and are Leaping Bunny certified, but otherwise I'm going to tell you a little bit about the claims of this foundation, and then we're going to get into a whole lot of footage of my first impression day and snippets of footage of other days of me testing this in different ways. I have been testing this for I want to say about 3 weeks and trying it in all kinds of different ways because I really wanted to give a full review of this foundation on my generally pretty normal to combination, do have some issues with pores and blemishes, 40-year-old skin. I'll also put timestamps down below, so if you want to jump around this video or skip over some of the testing days, feel free to do so. So this foundation right here, it comes in 12 different shades, which isn't a great shade range, but it's pretty low coverage, almost like a BB cream, which means that even if you are kind of close to your shade, it will probably match it. There's not a huge amount they say about this. On the bottle, they say it continuously hydrates skin for 11 hours, so skin looks smooth and naturally beautiful. It is unscented, which is true. I've looked at the ingredient list. There is no fragrance in there. It says it won't clog pores, and it's dermatologically tested. Now, on the website, they say that it is designed with aqua current science. Don't know what that is. CG Smoothers All Day Hydrating Makeup provides super moisturizing coverage. From the instant you smooth it on, all you'll see and feel is naturally beautiful, smooth skin. Your natural makeup look lasts for up to 11 hours. So basically the claims are that it is moisturizing, it is natural, it lasts up to 11 hours, it won't clog your pores, and I think that's about it. So let's get into the testing footage. Day 1. No primer, no powder on top. I have washed and moisturized my face, let my moisturizer sink in for about 10 minutes, and now we're gonna give this a try, and I'm gonna try it with a beauty blender today. I'll zoom you in so you can get a bit of a closer look. So I do have a few pimples and blemishes going on today. I always have like some freckles and stuff, but I've got a few more extra things that I would like to cover. I went with the shade 710 Classic Ivory. There was a 705 just Ivory, but I felt like this one was gonna work more with my slightly more tan skin and also was maybe a little bit more neutral. So I'm just gonna put this out onto the back of my hand and go from there. Here in Canada, at least in the drugstores that I go to, our drugstores tend to not have testers, or if they do, it's really spotty, so it can be hard to tell what shade is going to match well. Damp beauty blender, here we go. So it's a little bit light, but I'll be able to work with it. It's looking very dewy. And I have to use a fairly light touch of the beauty blender or else it's leaving some spots. Okay, the beauty blender has sucked up quite a bit of it. So I'm gonna have to put out a bit more. Maybe I'll put it directly onto my face this time. It's definitely light coverage. At this moment in time, it's feeling very much like a dewy BB cream. But because it is such a light coat, it feels very natural and it just looks like I have really nicely moisturized skin, but it looks very much like my own skin. I'm gonna put a touch more just there where I have a couple of little blemishes just to see. And I'm using just the smallest amount to try to build it up a little bit. I'm not usually one to build foundations because I like a really light look, but even cut anything. I'll zoom in a little bit more so we can see all of my skin at this moment. So you can still see my blemishes there and my freckles. It's really evened out my skin tone, taken away the redness, and given quite a bit of moisturization and dewiness to my skin. It definitely feels like it's not, you know, setting to a powder finish at this point, but I also just applied it. So I am going to turn this off for now, let it rest for a moment, do its thing in setting as much as it's going to. I will then put on my makeup and be back here to show you what it looks like. So I spent about 20 minutes putting on my makeup. It's 10:22 and I originally put this on around 10. It has a couple things going on, so let me zoom you in and show you. I do feel that as it has dried down, it has darkened and turned a little bit yellower, because originally it was looking quite light on my skin, like it might be lighter, and now it's looking almost a little bit darker than the shade on my neck. So I do think like just a tiny bit, not a huge amount, but it has dried down a touch darker and yellower. So also the initial, like there's still some luminosity there, like on my forehead, but it definitely dried down much more matte than went on. Now that's also tends to be the case with a beauty blender, because it will add moisture to your skin as you go. So as the water kind of evaporates that went on with the foundation, it does kind of mattify a little bit. So it's still looking very skin-like, although it does look a little bit more matte than it did before. It stayed quite tacky to the touch, like it still is right now. So I went in with cream products because I didn't really feel like I'd be able to blend powder products on top of here without it really gripping on. So for this look today, I use my Yes Please ColourPop palette. I just went in with these two middle shades, this one all over, and then this sort of peach coral one just on my lid itself. Because this was, you know, not really drying down to a powder, I went in with a cream blush. This is the NYX Whipped Blush. This one, do I know what shade it's in? This is Pink Cloud, and I really like these. When you first put it on, it looks like it's going to be really like too much color, but you just keep tapping and it blends out beautifully. I also didn't bring it in here with me, but I used a cream highlighter, which is where I'm getting that little bit of glow. And then very lightly, I went in with a layer of Tarte lip paint. This is Home Slice. And I did my trick where I just sort of tap it around a little bit so that it wasn't a very thick layer. So that is what we have going on right now. It does look very skin-like, and I will zoom you in once again. I know we're going in and out here, but just to show you close up what my skin is looking like. So it's looking pretty skin-like on my forehead as far as I can tell, but you can see it's really light coverage. You can see all of my freckles. Really all it's done is taken away any redness. So again, on my cheeks, you can see a couple of my blemishes coming through, but it's looking very skin-like, although I feel like now you can see how it's a little bit deeper there. And it maybe looks a little tiny bit more matte and dry than I would like, sort of around my mouth area, but we'll keep an eye on that as the day goes along. But as far as a lightweight summer foundation, so far we're looking pretty good. Hey folks, it's 2 p.m. so I thought I would do a check-in. This has been on for 4 hours. It is feeling heavy and also shiny, like oily, which often will happen on days where I don't powder, but it's always nice to kind of get this baseline of what it does on its own. So I will zoom you in to show you a little bit of what I'm seeing. So you can start to see how shiny my forehead is here. You know, and it's feeling pretty heavy because it's sort of collecting those oils a little bit. So I did have some highlighter here, but I'm looking pretty shiny all over. And I feel again like I'm really noticing the difference in shade, which makes me feel like it's continuing to deepen in color a little bit. Although for future days, I can blend down my neck a little bit more, so that shouldn't be as much of an issue. But it's just feeling a little shiny and heavy at this point. Back for another check-in later. It's just after 7 p.m. This has been on for just over 9 hours, and over the last few hours I had a barbecue dinner outside, so I was wearing my sunglasses. It was a little hot. So I'm just going to take a quick look at how this is doing, and I will say that it has not significantly changed at all since the last check-in. Also, from wearing my sunglasses, there aren't huge marks there, but that's possibly because, you know, with no powder and no primer on here, probably a fair bit of it has worn off, so there's probably not that much to make a mark there. I am looking shiny. But apart from that, it looks like, you know, there's still maybe the tiniest bit of coverage there. It's still keeping me pretty, like, you know, the redness isn't really coming through. So I'm hoping that with trying this out in different ways, I can get it to work a little bit better. So I'll zoom you in to show you all the goods up close, and then we will call it a night. So, you know, you don't really see foundation at all on my forehead, so it's kind of worn away, but I do feel quite oily, and I am quite shiny right now. Same with my cheeks, very shiny. Yeah, there's a lot of shine going on, and because of that shine, it's kind of emphasizing like my blemishes and things that are there. But hey, we have much more time to continue testing this out. That is the first impression day. I'll say that I like that it doesn't get, you know, crusty foundation or anything. It feels like it blends with my skin pretty well. I feel like if I could find a way to keep this lasting a bit longer and also absorbing a bit of oil so that it doesn't start to feel so heavy, that this may be a good lightweight foundation. I'm not really seeing the smoothing of this, but we will continue to test it and see how it goes. Today I used no primer. I applied the foundation with a beauty blender, and I powdered it with my Pretty Vulgar setting powder, and did not put any setting spray or anything on. It is looking okay. It's looking a little heavy and a little dry, just a touch, around my nose and mouth area on first application. I'll zoom you in to show you. I feel like it's looking fine on most of my skin, still pretty low coverage, but I'm finding a little bit of heaviness and dryness just around these areas and on my chin. So keep an eye on that as the day goes along. Hey guys, I apologize for any background music you hear. That is the concert that is going on outside my place. This honestly hasn't been on for that long, but I just want to get it off my face. It doesn't necessarily look bad, and I'll zoom you in because I know it's a little hard to see in this lighting. It looks like a really light foundation. I feel like there's a couple areas where you can sort of see it looking a little foundation-y. The issue is how it feels. Like, I feel like I've got a thick layer of something on my forehead right now and like around where my pores are. And I also just today, I'm really tired. I didn't get a lot of sleep. My eyes are watering, so I feel like, you know, I have some eye watering, which is kind of messing up my makeup. All that to say that I haven't really found the best combination yet because I just really don't like the way that it feels. So I'll zoom you in and show you what I can show you, and we'll go from there. I feel like it looks a little foundation-y on my forehead, although not bad, but it's very light coverage. It's not looking as shiny as it did yesterday. I feel like it's a little makeup-y as well around my upper lip and my nose, but it really is mostly the way that it feels. But it feels like a very heavy full coverage foundation on my face. It just doesn't look like that. For today's wear, I have a mineral sunscreen that I'm trying underneath the foundation, no primer. Then I applied the foundation with a brush. I put on some Laura Mercier setting powder, and then also finished off my look with some Cover FX illuminating setting spray. I feel like the setting spray hopefully is going to help this look a little less heavy, although I'm fully expecting it to feel heavy, especially since I have the sunscreen underneath, but I will zoom you in to show you. I do feel like this sunscreen that I'm using collects a fair bit around my hairline. Mineral sunscreens tend to have that white cast, and I'm seeing it a lot more there. But again, this continues to be a very natural look foundation, and I didn't see a significant difference in applying it with a brush over a beauty blender. It's pretty close to the end of the day, and I'm actually fairly surprised at how well this foundation held up to going over sunscreen. I thought that it was going to feel extra heavy because of the layer of sunscreen, which tends to feel a little heavy. But it's not feeling too bad. Like, it doesn't feel lightweight, but it's definitely not as heavy feeling as I thought it would be. And this has also been the first day where I've kind of looked at myself in the mirror when I've been out and about, and I've kind of thought, oh, my makeup's not looking bad. Now, when I look close up, I do see some issues with it looking a little bit dry in places, and also the sunscreen kind of gathering in some spots. But surprisingly, I think this is one of the better days for it. I'll zoom you in and show you. Again, it's very light, but it doesn't feel super oily right now. I feel like a lot of the dryness I'm seeing is sort of under my eyes, but not looking too bad. I am going to pop in here to let you know that the next day of testing, my makeup is horrendous. Oftentimes, if I'm not going out, I will try different makeup things and play around with stuff. And two things is, first of all, I don't know what was happening with the contour that I was trying to do in this video, but just know that I never left my house. And two, I swear it did not look as bad in person as it did on camera. But let's ignore that because I wanted to leave this testing day in. And just also ignore the fact that apparently when I'm talking about it looking good, I'm talking about the skin, not the crazy makeup that's going on. For today, I don't have the mineral sunscreen on, but I do have a Cover FX blurring primer. I then put on the foundation with a brush. I finished it off with some Fit Me Matte and Poreless, not the loose one, the solid powder, and then also put on some of my Cover FX illuminating setting spray. This is probably my favorite look so far of this, just on initial application. I will zoom you in to show you. I did more bronzing of my forehead and face today and attempted to do a little bit of nose contour, although it's looking a little too warm. I just feel like it's looking probably the most skin-like and least heavy it's looked this entire time, although I still feel like it maybe will start to feel heavy as the day goes along. All I'm doing today is staying in, but I will give you an update at the end of the day. So I'm about to take this off because it is coming up on dinner time and I'm going out, and I just feel like having a clean face before I do. But this is probably one of the best days so far. Like, this doesn't actually feel heavy at all. It still doesn't feel like no makeup, but it's either that this one really likes a primer or it somehow is less thick when you apply it with a brush. Now, maybe that's because I get better coverage with a brush and I'm not putting as much on, but I will continue to play around with it and see which variables make it work. Ooh, this shirt clashes with this eye look. For today, I did not use any primer and I applied the foundation with a brush, and I set it with some of the Fit Me Matte and Poreless powder because I did not use any setting spray because I want to see if using a brush is what it is that makes this feel weightless. And then if today it still feels heavy, then tomorrow I can try using a setting spray and see if that is what the magic ingredient is. I'll check in later. First of all, that noise you hear is The Offspring currently playing a concert outside. But for today, I mean, this still feels heavy. I think it looks nice today. I think this is a brush, not a sponge foundation, which is a little strange, but it still feels heavy. I'm just having a problem getting around that. And I do think that while it looked nice at the end of the day when my face started to produce a little bit of oil to mix with the foundation, I was really missing that setting spray at the start of the day to make it look a little nicer. So that's all for today's test. Hey guys, please ignore the kind of wet hair and also the lawn mowing that's going on in the background. For today's day of testing, I am trying it with no primer, but with a crap ton of setting spray on top. And I think it's looking pretty good right now. I'll zoom you in and show you. So at the moment, I feel like it's doing a good job of blurring my pores. And I feel like it's actually giving me fairly good coverage. However, I do notice that around my nose and my upper lip, it's looking a little makeup-y. Like it never really looks like it joins in with my skin even after spraying with setting spray. I also feel like this is probably going to oxidize. It hasn't started to do that yet. You know, and it feels a little less heavy actually when it has the setting spray on. It's an illuminating setting spray, which is why I have so much illumination going on, but I don't mind the way I look right now. I think my skin looks pretty nice. As I said, the only areas I don't like it are just around my nose and my mouth. Hey guys, so I wanted to check in because I'm probably going to take this off soon. It's been on for 7 or 8 hours now, but quite honestly, I fell asleep in it. It's been like a crazy few days, and I finally got something resolved, and by about like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it was like all of the tension that I was feeling was gone and I was just exhausted. So I napped for about an hour and I was like smushed up on my face. But looking at my skin right now, I don't really even see any foundation, but I can feel it. Like it still feels like thick, especially on my forehead. It just makes my face feel like heavy. I'll zoom you in to show you, but there's really not that much to see. I feel like my highlight's still there a little bit, but it's this funny combination of like it looks like there's nothing left on my face, but I swear when I go to remove this, there'll be a lot of product coming off because I can still like very much feel it on there. I do think it looked a lot better with the setting spray, and it seemed to not oxidize quite as much either. So that's good. So after all of this time testing, let's start out by comparing what I felt it did to their claims. They claim that it is moisturizing, and that's kind of a hard one. It did have that very like thick feeling texture to it, and I definitely didn't feel like my skin dried out, but there were times where it looked quite dry on my skin after I had powdered it, and it definitely did not have a naturally dewy finish at all. It didn't make you look radiant. It dried to a pretty natural matte, probably more of a satin matte. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was the most moisturizing foundation I've ever used. Also not drying, but considering, you know, it talks about, I think the smoothing part of CG Smoothers is supposed to be providing hydration, I didn't super feel that. Now, it is fragrance free. It did not clog my pores in my entire time testing it. I didn't feel that it gave me any kind of breakouts, and actually the worst the breakouts that I had were before I started testing it. So in terms of, you know, dermatologically tested and not clogging pores, I did not have a problem with that at all. 11 hours of lasting, up to 11 hours. I mean, they say up to, so okay, but it definitely was not a long-lasting foundation. It did this kind of funny thing where I felt like right now I've just put it on and I feel like it's got some fairly good coverage going on, and if you look close up at my face right now, it's looking pretty good. But after about 3 to 4 hours, it really like loses its coverage quite a lot. So by the end of the day, no matter what primer or powder or setting spray I was using, it looked like I had no foundation on. But then strangely, when I would go to take it off, I could see, I've also been testing some makeup wipes. I don't usually use makeup wipes, but I could see like so much foundation coming off, which was weird considering how little coverage it was providing on my face. So I will say that if you do want to use this foundation, I think it looks best with a lot of setting spray. It takes down a little bit of that heaviness at first, and I think helps with the heaviness throughout the day. Unfortunately, I will say that I can't recommend this foundation. I find it does this odd combination of not providing that much coverage while also feeling really heavy, which was my biggest drawback to this, was just the feeling of it on my face. I never got to a point where like later on in the day I forgot it was there. If anything, it felt heavier through the day, and I just wanted to get it off by the end of the day. And I sort of feel like I can forgive that a bit in a high coverage foundation, but But in such a low coverage foundation, I don't understand why it feels so very heavy. I want to compare this to the Ordinary Serum Foundation, which I find is also fairly light coverage and does fade by the end of the day. Like, it's going to look like you're not wearing anything, but it also feels like you're not wearing anything by the end of the day. And I think the biggest turnoff for me for this foundation was that feeling. It also had some issues with not being the easiest foundation to use. I found that whether I was using a beauty blender or a brush, I had to work at it to make sure that it didn't have any streaks, or it wasn't sort of like building up in certain areas. Like, if you were using a brush, you had to very much make sure there weren't brush strokes left in it. So it never really feels like it sinks into your skin. It feels like it's sort of moving around on top of your skin a fair bit. So you definitely do need to set it with powder because it just feels like it moves around in that way. I mentioned it does deepen a little bit as it dries down. I found that once I started powdering and using setting spray, that didn't tend to happen as much for it. But I'm having a hard time coming up with that many positives for it to balance out the negatives that I feel. I think there are better choices out there at the drugstore. I think there are some lovely BB creams if you want something that is light feeling and light coverage. And then I just think there are some better foundations that give more coverage if you're looking for more. So unfortunately, I am not going to recommend the CG Smoothers Foundation. I don't see myself reaching for this again, mostly just because I can't get over the heaviness of the feeling of it. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it and that this kind of testing was helpful for you. If you have tried this and you loved it, because I was looking at reviews and people seem to, like, a number of people seem to like it. Please let me know your experience with it, how you apply it, how you use it. Leave all of that in the comments down below. If you do like this kind of, long-term testing with lots of checking in, give this video a thumbs up. If there is another drugstore foundation that you would like me to test, please let me know. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.